Until 1787, Catrine existed only as a small hamlet consisting of 11 dwellings, including a corn mill, a smithy, and Nether Catrine House belonging to Dugald Stewart of Edinburgh University, where Robert Burns famously dinnered with a lord. In 1787, Claude Alexander of Ballochmyle, in partnership with the cotton entrepreneur David Dale, chose Catrine as the place where they would build a cotton mill. Catrine was chosen simply by virtue and good fortune of its position on the fast-flowing River Ayr, which was to provide the energy to drive the looms and spinning machines for most of the cotton-producing years. From 1787 until 1968, Catrine was a hard-working cotton community, exporting its goods to all corners of the globe. Claude Alexander and David Dale's decision to turn Catrine into a bustling, busy cotton spinning town meant things would never be the same again. This is their story, and the story of Catrine and its people. It is the story of yesterday, and of today, and of tomorrow. This is the story of Catrine, Queen of the West.
The mill bell controlled your world. Now, it didn't ring ridiculously early in the morning when I was a youngster. I think it was 8 o'clock it rang. And it rang at 6 o'clock at night. I think I'm right saying it was 8 o'clock in the morning. It could have been 7. But I think I remember it as 8 o'clock.
I was the A shift, and you had to remember it when you come in. You started at 6 in the morning and you finished at 2. That was one shift. Another shift was from 2 to 10. So I was A shift, A or B shift, I was A.
And this is when you were 15 years old?
When I was 15.
Well, when you turned it to wait till the power came on, well, that came from the Vos, the reservoirs, you know. And when the power went off, well, you could put your machines on, you know. And I don't know if you know about spinning bobbins. You had a row of them, about 100, and you'd, like, with 5 sides of those to contend with, you know. And if one broke, it went into your lap, and you'd all that to stop your machine and get it sorted out and everything. And I mean, you were anxious to make money and you were trying to go on with it. But it was hard life. And the other thing was, most of us worked with bare feet because there were that much oil. Things were rationed. You couldn't buy shoes or anything, and the stitching fell apart with oil. So most of us worked with it. There were visitors came to see the mill and they used to look at us with our bare feet. Very little clothes, just a pinafore, you know.
Where the raw cotton went in, for the Genie House they called it. That's where the raw cotton went in from India, and it come through a tunnel straight across that main road in big bales like that.
Huge.
And they were put onto big machines, and it was 2 boys or 2 men that put them on and worked it, and you gathered it, rubbed it, put it through a thing, and it came out that.
The looms were divided into that particular time really out of convenience, because they were only, when I started in here, we were only looked after 2, and they were kept going because you could everything by hand, but they become automatic very rapidly. And these, the rows of 18 looms, and they were divided up into 62, and the tender, as we Scottish Power Loom tender, that was the man that maintained them. You had 62 to look after, so you had like 4 rows of looms and a half row, and you had a neighbour, and you worked with one another, and you could sing with that because they're really battered on. Weavers, I would say, you had to work if you're a weaver. You couldn't be lazy.
Oh, I liked the mill. I was quite happy there. But when I started in the mill, I think it was 8 shillings a week. That's 8 shillings a week, and that went on till I was about 16.
Oh, the wages was very, very low, but also the rents was very cheap. You got enough as day, there were happy days, and you didn't make a fortune or nothing like that. And when other families come up, was guaranteed work. You go into the mall in Bleachfield, either that or go to the mines. So.
I think what it was like in my younger days, there were beautiful shops, and it was lovely. What's the old mill in new was the Red Line, and that was Mrs. Rayside's pub. And I can always remember, if my dad was in the back shift, going across with a jug to get a shillings worth of beer. And you went to this wee side window. In those days, women wasn't allowed into pubs. And you went to this side window, and they opened it up, and you get this jug of beer for a shilling just before, and then went across. But then further up, there would be Carson's Sweetie Shop, just at the corner before you got to the kirk.
The village was hustle and bustle, and during that time, there were about 34 outlets, 36 outlets in Catrine.
Ballochmyle was a military hospital, but the troops were stationed all through Catrine. There were a big lot of them, the Grenadier Guards stationed up at the works. And then, of course, we had all these children. We had 4 children at a time in Glasgow. I was about 14 then. So we had quite a war. The works were working double time. They were working shifts through the night.
I used to do a lot of walking down the riverside. That was one of the fantastic adventures. You never had computers or stuff like that. So you just made your own fun. They were always forever going down into what I used to call the wee ferry wood. It's still there. How you accessed it was you go through Ballochmyle Gatehouse, which sits at the corner of Ballochmyle Street and Mauchline Road. You could walk through there and get access to Ballochmyle Hospital via Jacob's Ladder. So we're always walking down either up to Ballochmyle or you could, in those days, quite easily just walk down beside the river. It was easy access, but now it's hard going to get down that side.
Train station up there, but they couldn't run straight out and onto the railway line at Mauchline.
The King and Queen were overnight in the station. They had got wee flags to wave, and in the morning they came out to see the actual train that the King and Queen were in.
They slept up in there one night. The station was up there and they slept out the corner, just where you go up the Lambeth Walk. But no, we never had a glimpse of them at all.
This carnival, I remember being in the floats in the carnival. Every street did their own float and dressed it. They were big days in the village. There were lots of competitions held in the play park in the Bosma Cooperative Avenue. You'd have tug of wars and five-a-sides and of course stalls. It was a big day's holiday.
I mean, the football and races and tug of war and floats and everything. Aye.
Well, I started in the bleaching works when I was 16 years of age. That would be when 1933, on All Fool's Day, the 1st of April 1933. I was there until January 1940, then went to the army. And I was in the army until 1946. I was 6 years away from Catrine. I came back, demobbed in 1946, joined up again at the bleaching works. I was there for maybe a month when I was transferred up to their head office in Glasgow. And from there, in Glasgow, I was there until 1955, and then came back to Catrine and was there until when the bleaching works closed, 1972, 78. I just can't remember whether it was 72 or 78. But that's my service with James Finlay and Company. While I was in Catrine, after the war, I was office manager there until such time I was moved to Glasgow. Then I came back to Catrine in 1955. Resumed my work there until, as I say, the place closed. There was the boys, the Cubs. What else was there? Well, there was a lot of church functions. I mean, almost everybody of my age group was in the church choir. But other than that, it was just a village. I don't think there was a great deal of entertainment other than that. There was a 12 o'clock train. We had a train at that time, with a railway station, and the 12 o'clock train was the famous train that went to Kilmarnock and Ayr. And I think everybody that lived in the village piled onto that train on a Saturday. You know, but neighbours were good neighbours, and any help you needed, you got from your neighbour. Then again, of course, the village was full of shops. Now I think we're 2 plus the post office. But we had shops right down the whole main street around the whole square.
Of course, the Wilson Hall, yeah, that was the pictures, of course. It came out twice a week, I think. But you remember the guy, he stood outside waiting, and of course the guy would turn up with the reel of film. We'd all pile in with our 3 old pence, the old wooden 30 bits ready. Yeah, it's great films. I mean, it's mostly cowboy films, all that kind of stuff.
The Catrine woods were yellow seen, the flowers decayed on Catrine Lea, and aye the wild wood echoes rang, farewell the braes of Ballarmile. Claude Alexander's decision to build a cotton town on the site of the hamlet of Catrine in 1787 led to many innovative developments, many well ahead of their time. A 5-storey twist mill with an adjoining genie factory were built, and workers' houses followed, creating a community. In many ways, Claude Alexander developed a model enterprise. Unlike contemporary mill owners, no one was allowed to work at Catrine under the age of 9, and there was a school built for working children, which they attended from 7 until 9 at night, almost 100 years before the Compulsory Education Act was passed through Parliament. He gave his workers garden allotments. He commissioned the building of the Chapel of Ease, so his workers could worship and reflect in a place of beauty. And in 1796, he commissioned the building of the brewery to introduce his workers to malt liquor instead of whisky.
Village was scattering, to be perfectly honest. I mean, they maintained the roads and everything, really, didn't they?
In 1801, James Finlay and Co. Limited bought the mills and the village, and they remained the owners of Catrine until 1968. James Finlay and Company were monumental in the development of Catrine as a cotton town. True, the workers worked long hours, 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, with only 2 days annual holiday. Yet they too received many benefits which we nowadays take for granted. Finlay & Co. provided free schooling for children and adults, sick pay and free medical treatment. And Catrine had gas lighting on its streets long before Glasgow or London were lit. The mill bell would ring every morning to ensure workers were up, and again at the end of shifts. Finlay also employs a drummer to go around the streets drumming sleepy heads awake. The busy wee tune were the drum I gaed rune at 5:30 in the morning.
If you look at the good they done initially, and the ideas, they were groundbreaking in a lot of ways, where they wanted the workers to be educated and to give them medication.
In 1824, the bleach works were built, which meant that Catrine was the only cotton town in Scotland which imported raw cotton and exported finished goods. The raw cotton was imported from America, Egypt, South Africa and India, and exported goods travelled to Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Argentina and Britain itself.
But they did like tartan towels, and they went all over the world So they used to say that the raw cotton came in here to the village, to the mill, and it was all processed there, and it was taken up to the bleaching works, bleached, dyed, whatever, and made up into sheets, pillowcases, towels, and then it was sent all over the world really. It would be for the station at one time, you know, when the station was in operation.
Oh, in the bleach field? Oh, there must have been in the region of 300 or 400. Their buses came from Newcombe, the buses came from all online, double deckers, and all the folk in Catrine and that. And there'd be about 4 or 5 double deckers come in, Cowtler, all these places, Bunbank, Bunfat, Muircat. Oh, what, I got a joke, kid.
In March 1827, the pair of wheels, measuring 50 feet each in diameter and 11 feet 6 inches wide, were installed to harness the water power from the River Aire. In order to ensure the steady turning of the wheels despite the weather, lathes and sluices were built, and at St Cuthbert Street 2 voes were excavated and a tunnel ran from the voes to the vast wheelhouse, to ensure there was always a plentiful supply of water to feed the wheels.
I remember we had a neighbour lived beside us in Gordon Street years ago as we were growing up, and we used to go in and see her, and her dad was the fuel worker, Granny Nelson. He operated the fuel kind of thing, and the story that sticks in my head that she used to tell us is that when she, you know, what she remembers most about it is that when it was sun, there was windows in it, and when it was sunshine, there was the rainbows come off it. You know, it was all these hundreds of wee rainbows going off of this big wheel, which must have looked amazing. And as a wee girl, that's what she remembers. But certainly it was its biggest, its kind.
I remember the big wheel farm, that should never have took it away.
In 1898, A.M. Brown, director of Finlay & Co., provided funds to build an institute named after him. He wanted to provide the inhabitants of Catrine with a facility for recreation, self-improvement and social enjoyment. It still stands today and is used and enjoyed by many of Catrine's inhabitants, a sure and steady testament to A.M. Brown himself.
Drum roll!
Well, my father was a dyer, and he worked in Muckamore in County Antrim, and the manager there left Muckamore and came over to Scotland, and it was James Finlay that he was travelling for. So they decided they were going to open a dyeing down in Catrine, the bleach works. So Mr McGowan sent for my father to come over here, because at that time York Street was going to close down. So he sent my father to come over here, so that's how we arrived in Catrine. 1932, November. It was very nice and everybody was very friendly. It was very friendly. A friendly place. We're very happy here. I was a hem stitching machine.
A deathly silence fills the town. The big mill bell's been taken down. Nae mair will hear its ringing chime, warning us of the working time. The things it's seen a book would fill, high in its perch upon the mill. On the 23rd of May 1963, the old twist mill, situated where today's square is, went on fire.
It was a huge fire, but they were playing hoses on the houses and shops in the square, particularly the roofs, because they were obviously worried that the sparks were going to blow over and crack.
The noise and the banging, banging. I think it was guns going off. We did it was going on fire. Ran to the first fire. Then we said we got it terrible.
Despite heavy investment from James Finlay and Co., Catrine couldn't escape the decline of the cotton industry in Britain, and in 1968 cotton ceased to be Catrine's reason for breathing, with Finlay and Co. Limited withdrawing from the village.
I think it was just the emergence of the Far East, you know, the cheap labour for the Far East. That's what did them lie. Yes,
The mill, which had been built in 1945, was sold to Carrick Furniture Warehouse, and in 1985 became the property of the local council, eventually being demolished in the December of 1985.
Oh, I remember that. I remember when it was knocked down. It's not long ago. It's 25 years ago since it was knocked down. 85 that was knocked down. A crowd for Glasgow come up and they demolished it. And then next thing you know, it's a ghost town. All the work stopped.
Well, obviously for my generation growing up as teenagers through the 80s when the new mill was being demolished, it was a very difficult time and a very unusual time, and that we had grown up with the stories of the mills and the memories of the mills and the ghosts, but for us it had never actually seen the mills working, so there's a whole generation of people who are living now who never saw the Catrine in its glory, and obviously subsequent generations will find it even more difficult to remember any part of that. So it's important that the stories are kept going and maintained and kept alive, and that's why obviously projects like this are really important.
The bleach works were sold to Glen Catrine Whisky Bonding and Bottling Plant, which remains a thriving enterprise today and employs many local people. And Catrine's people today remember all these yesterdays through stories passed down through the years, through the generations. They remember or hear about days long past when Catrine was Queen of the West with pride, and arise from the ashes of the stories and their memories and the ghosts of faces and buildings with a new determination and pride. Pride in Catrine for yesterday and today and tomorrow.
I can see it going up the way now. There's a great deal of excitement in the village, and over the next 10 years, if I live to see it, it will be back to its former glory.
I like Catrine because I have lots of friends here. So I have 3 or 4 of my friends that live in my street. I like Catrine also because it's 2 play parks. Sometimes in villages don't even have one, so Catrine's quite lucky that way.
Well, my favourite thing about Catrine is when I need a book, I can just go to the library and get one, and there's 2 parks so that I can go to whatever one I want and which mood I'm in.
My favourite thing about
caught them as all the pals are good.
And this is with the up the water, it's good for fishing, feeding swans and a wee walking and stuff like that.
My favourite thing about catching is most of my friends live here. My favourite thing about catching is all the people because they're really nice and they talk to you. My favourite thing about catching is there's lots of shops and parks and you can buy stuff and play a lot.